My parents always made it clear who their favorite was. Amy, my younger sister, could do no wrong. From the time we were kids, every moment revolved around her. When she turned 2, they threw her a massive birthday party with face painters, a petting zoo, even a bouncy castle. That same year, for my 5th birthday, I got a store-bought cake and a quiet dinner at home. That set the tone for everything that followed. She got the newest toys, the best clothes, all the attention. I remember saving for months to buy myself a bike when I was 10. The day I finally got it, Amy cried that she wanted one too. Instead of teaching her patience, my parents bought her an even better bike the very next day. School wasn't any different. I was in plays, math club, debate team, always excelling, but they never noticed. They missed my big scene in a school play because Amy had a stomachache. She was fine later, but the damage was done. I brought home straight A's, won a regional science fair, got recognition from my teachers. They barely reacted. When Amy got a B+ in one subject, they celebrated like she'd won a Nobel Prize. They took her out for dinner, bought her a new phone, told her how proud they were. I learned early on that nothing I did was ever enough. By high school, I worked twice as hard, hoping to earn their approval. I had a 4.0 GPA, captained the debate team, became editor of the school paper, got selected for a prestigious summer program at Harvard. When I shared the news, my dad barely looked up from his plate. He muttered, "That's nice," and changed the subject to Amy's upcoming dance recital. They couldn't even drive me to the airport when it was time to leave. Amy had a performance, so they went to that instead. I had to ask my friends' parents to give me a ride. College applications were another slap in the face. I worked on essays for months, got accepted to multiple top schools, and earned a scholarship. Their reaction? "That's good, but don't let it get to your head." Meanwhile, when Amy barely scraped through high school and decided not to go to college, they called her brave for knowing herself. They even bought her a car as a graduation gift. By the time I graduated college with honors, had a steady job in finance, and bought my own house at 27, I had already stopped expecting anything from them. I was proud of myself even if they weren't. That's when the real drama started. My grandfather on my dad's side passed away. He'd built a successful business from nothing and left behind a significant estate. When his will was read, everything was split equally among his children and grandchildren. That meant I was left with around $500,000. It was life-changing money. I could pay off loans, invest, maybe start my own business. For the first time, I felt like all my hard work might finally have a chance to pay off. But my parents didn't see it that way. After the reading, they pulled me aside, visibly upset. They told me it wasn't fair I got the same as Amy. According to them, she needed it more because she was struggling. She was 25, living in their basement, working part-time at a coffee shop, with no plans for her future. They insisted it was my moral duty to hand my inheritance over to her. I refused. Calmly, I told them Grandpa had made his decision, and it wasn't theirs to change. They exploded. My dad accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. He listed every tiny thing they had ever done for me: paying for braces, buying school supplies, letting me live at home during college. He conveniently ignored that they'd bought Amy a car, funded her shopping sprees, and continued supporting her into adulthood. Things escalated quickly. My dad, as executor of the will, declared he would interpret Grandpa's intentions differently. He announced that Amy would get my entire share because that's what Grandpa would have wanted if he had known our situation. My heart sank. Not only was it completely illegal, but it also made it painfully clear how little my parents valued me. I tried to argue, pointing out how Grandpa had always treated us equally, how he supported my academics and career. They brushed it off, claiming I was twisting things. My mother accused me of speaking ill of the dead by suggesting Grandpa wouldn't have wanted what they were proposing. Amy stood by silently, shrugging and saying, "Mom and Dad know best." She wasn't going to stand up for me, so I turned to Grandma. When she found out, she was furious. She told me my parents had no authority to alter the will, and that Grandpa had specifically written it to prevent this kind of manipulation. In fact, years earlier, My parents had begged him to leave everything to Amy, but he refused. He believed every grandchild should be treated equally. He even added a clause. Anyone who tried to challenge the equal distribution would lose their share entirely. Armed with that, I confronted my parents again. They looked stunned when I revealed I knew the truth. My dad tried to defend himself by saying he was just looking out for Amy, but his face gave him away. Grandma didn't waste time. She called the other executor, contacted the lawyer, and informed Dad's siblings. Together, they shut down my dad's scheme. The will was carried out exactly as written, and I received my full share. My parents were livid. They accused me of turning the family against them. My mother cried, saying I had betrayed them and split the family apart. My dad threatened to cut me out of their own will completely. He even said I wouldn't be welcome in their house if I accepted Grandpa's money. My mom hit me with the lowest blow of all. She said my choice to keep the inheritance proved I never really loved them, that I only cared about money. The fallout split the family. Some cousins supported me, saying they'd seen the favoritism all along. Others said I should have just given Amy the money to keep the peace. Amy stayed quiet, privately admitting she felt bad, but wasn't willing to challenge our parents. For the first time, I stopped giving in. I kept the inheritance, just like Grandpa wanted. My parents barely spoke to me. Family dinners grew tense and awkward. Eventually, I stopped going. But deep down, I felt a strange mix of pain and empowerment. For once, I wasn't letting them walk over me. The weeks after the inheritance fight were some of the hardest of my life. Every call from my parents turned into a guilt trip. My dad repeated over and over that I was tearing the family apart. My mother would cry loudly on the phone, saying she couldn't believe her own son would betray them like this. They told relatives half-truths, claiming I manipulated Grandma and pressured the lawyer. One night my aunt called me. She said my parents had shown up at her house complaining that I was selfish and greedy. She didn't buy it. She told me she had seen the favoritism my whole life, that she had always felt bad for me but hadn't wanted to interfere. Hearing her admit that was both validating and heartbreaking. Grandma was my biggest supporter. She told me stories I'd never heard before. How Grandpa had bragged about my achievements. How he had saved every newspaper clipping about me. Every letter of acceptance I'd ever received. She pulled out a scrapbook he had kept secretly, filled with my milestones. It broke me to realize he had been proud all along, even if my parents never showed it. Meanwhile, Amy stayed quiet. I tried to talk to her, to make her see what was happening. She said she felt bad but couldn't go against Mom and Dad. She admitted she was scared of disappointing them, scared of losing their approval. She had been trained her whole life to rely on their validation. I couldn't even be angry at her. She was as much a product of their favoritism as I was. Then came the family gathering. My aunt hosted it. My parents weren't invited, but they showed up anyway. The moment they walked in, my dad started yelling about how I'd stolen from Amy. My mother threw an old photo album at my feet, screaming that I'd destroyed years of happy memories. Relatives tried to calm them down, but the shouting didn't stop until they were forced to leave. It was humiliating, but also clarifying. Everyone saw firsthand the behavior I had been dealing with my whole life. After that night, Grandma called a family meeting, without my parents. She laid out everything, from the favoritism I had endured to their attempts to manipulate the will. She even revealed the clause Grandpa had included to stop them from pulling exactly what they had tried. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone was fighting for me. My aunts, uncles, and cousins rallied behind me. They told me I wasn't crazy, that they had noticed the patterns too. Amy surprised me not long after. She came to me and apologized. She admitted she had always known deep down that the favoritism was unfair, but was too scared to speak up. She told me being the favorite hadn't been as good as it looked. She had never learned to be independent, never learned to stand on her own. She felt trapped, constantly pressured to meet our parents' expectations. For the first time, she wanted to change. She shocked everyone when she said she was going to use her inheritance for college. She enrolled in community college with plans to transfer to a 4-year university. She said watching me stand up for myself gave her the courage to finally take control of her life. Our parents were stunned. They tried to talk her out of it, saying college wasn't for her, that she was only doing it because I had influenced her. But she didn't back down. My mother slowly started to soften. After long talks with Grandma and seeing Amy change, she admitted she had been unfair. She even started therapy to confront her behavior. She called me one day, apologizing through tears. She said she wanted to rebuild our relationship. I was cautious, but I agreed to small steps. Lunch together, honest conversations. My dad, however, refused to budge. He stayed angry, convinced he was the victim. He stopped speaking to me entirely. He grew cold toward Amy, too, upset that she was making choices without his approval. He threatened to sell the family house, threatened to cut us out of his will. None of it worked this time. Amy and I stood our ground. For the first time, Amy and I started building a real sibling bond. We began meeting once a month, just the two of us, to talk and support each other. We hiked, had coffee, even laughed together like we hadn't since we were kids. Without our parents in the middle, we were free to actually connect. I used my inheritance wisely. I paid off my student loans, invested with a financial advisor, and set aside funds for a future business. But the most meaningful thing I did was pay for therapy, for myself, and for Amy. We both had years of wounds to work through. Therapy helped me rebuild my self-esteem, set boundaries, and stop living for my parents' approval. It helped Amy unlearn her dependence and start finding her own identity. Grandma remained our rock. She reminded us of Grandpa's values, told us stories of how he believed in fairness, how he wanted his grandchildren to thrive equally. She said he would have been proud of us for standing up for ourselves. Knowing that gave me strength. The extended family shifted. My dad's siblings stood firmly by me. Some cousins grew closer, seeing me as someone who finally broke the cycle. We even started monthly cousin dinners, free from the drama of the older generation. For the first time, I felt like I had a chosen family within my extended one. My work life improved too. Handling years of favoritism and this inheritance battle made me realize how much I wanted to help others in similar situations. I started volunteering at a youth center, mentoring kids from dysfunctional homes. I even began considering going back to school to become a family therapist. Helping kids in the way I wished someone had helped me gave me a sense of purpose I had never felt before. Even with all the progress, the wounds still cut deep. My dad refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. He still skipped family events, still pretended I was the problem. But I had stopped trying to change him. I realized I couldn't force him to see what he didn't want to. Instead, I focused on building the life I wanted, with the people who actually valued me. Amy kept surprising me. She excelled in her classes, got her first job outside of our parents' control, and started living independently for the first time. She told me she finally felt free. Our bond kept growing stronger. We celebrated her small wins together, wins our parents never would have recognized if she had stayed under their control. Through all of this, I learned that family isn't just the people you're born into. It's the people who stand by you, who respect you, who value you. For the first time, I felt like I had built my own family. Time passed, but the tension with my father never faded. Every holiday became a question. Would he show up? Would he ignore me? Would there be another scene? Sometimes he stayed away. Sometimes he arrived only to glare at me across the room, refusing to speak. It was exhausting, but I stopped letting it control me. I learned to walk in, greet everyone, and live my life without waiting for his approval. My mother kept trying to rebuild our relationship. She apologized often, not in vague words but in specific ways, admitting she had chosen Amy over me again and again. She said she saw now how much damage it caused. Sometimes I believed her. Sometimes I wondered if guilt was driving her more than real change. But I kept giving her chances in small doses. We met for coffee, sometimes for lunch. I let her talk and I listened, but I held my boundaries firmly. If she slipped into manipulation, I walked away. Amy kept moving forward. She got her associate degree, then transferred to a state university. She called me the day she got her acceptance letter, crying with happiness. She said none of it would have happened without me. I told her she did it on her own. I only stood beside her. She began to grow in ways I never thought possible. She found friends outside the family circle, started dating someone who respected her, and slowly built confidence. Meanwhile, my father's anger turned into isolation. He pushed away not just me and Amy but also other relatives. My aunts and uncles stopped inviting him to gatherings because he couldn't resist stirring conflict. He grew bitter, sitting at home, stewing in his resentment. I heard through cousins that he complained constantly, claiming I had brainwashed Amy, claiming I had destroyed the family. For once, no one believed him. The irony was that the more he tried to paint me as the villain, the clearer it became to everyone who the real problem was. Relatives who had once stayed neutral started reaching out to me, telling me they admired how I handled things. They said I had broken a cycle that had been running through the family for generations. Favoritism, control, manipulation. I used part of my inheritance to start a scholarship fund in my grandfather's name. It was small at first, but it helped kids from tough backgrounds pay for college books and fees. When I announced it at a family gathering, the room went silent. My grandmother cried. Amy hugged me and said Grandpa would be proud. My father wasn't there, but I knew he would have hated it. That made it even more meaningful. Life slowly stabilized. I built a career, invested wisely, and focused on my own happiness. I traveled, something I had always dreamed of but never felt I deserved. I stood on a mountain in Colorado one summer, looking out over the landscape, and realized I had finally built a life not defined by my parents' approval or disapproval. But there were still hard moments. Some nights I would think about how things could have been if my parents had treated me equally from the start. I thought about the little boy who worked twice as hard for half the attention, who stayed quiet while his sister was praised for the smallest effort. I thought about how different my life might have been if someone had told him he was enough. Those thoughts hurt, but they also reminded me of how far I had come. Amy and I built new traditions. We celebrated birthdays together, we hosted small dinners, we carved out a family of our own. One year she invited me to her graduation ceremony. Watching her walk across that stage, cap and gown on, tears in her eyes, was one of the proudest moments of my life. She spotted me in the crowd, waved, and mouthed, "Thank you." That moment erased years of resentment. My grandmother eventually passed, but not before telling me she was proud of me for standing my ground. She said Grandpa would have been too. Her words carried me through her loss. At her funeral, my father barely looked at me. He stood off to the side, silent, refusing to share in the family's grief. But instead of feeling crushed, I felt pity. His pride had cost him everything: his children, his family, his place in the circle. The cycle ended with me and Amy. We promised each other that if we ever had children, we would never repeat what had been done to us. We would treat them with fairness, with love, with respect. That promise became the foundation of how we lived moving forward. I realized in the end that revenge hadn't come in dramatic gestures. It wasn't about screaming matches or legal battles. My revenge was quieter. It was building a life without needing them. It was watching Amy break free from their control. It was standing strong while my father crumbled under his own bitterness. That was the real revenge. Living well, while the ones who tried to control me lost the very power they had clung to all their lives.